17 years now, probably 16 years, and been doing pinball for about 25 years. So
see the madman in your gaze.
Have about 100 pinball machines, various places. Most of them, about 70% of them are on location. The other ones I have at home, which is playing, different stuff. But from some of the stuff I found from at some of these places that get to harder playing, especially of what some of the stuff that you can do for like preventive maintenance to probably stop some of your problems from having at home, to make it a little bit more difficult for you to fix, and and also for just in general how to repair some of the parts that maybe you're somewhere you've got to wait a week to order it or whatever, you can't, not right in, you want to get that thing, you want to play it, you got some people coming over, there's a couple things you can do to get by. They said this game actually was over there on the floor today, and the flipper, one of the things that I change now especially if I open it up, is the stern flipper bolts will break on them. And this one here, if you see, I got it back up with one. It only has one. You guys could probably even come and look a little bit. It has one on there. It broke. The coil stopped, fell into the game, and the coil fell off.
What bolts are you talking about?
They're right here.
Yeah, gotcha.
See, now how this is what the stern bolt looks like this. We'll start with this here little thing here, and then stern bolt are these, and here you guys can look at them. And the Allen head is actually an old, is like what Williams used to use. They're a little more hardened bolt, they won't break, but they're the same threads. You can put them right in. Any game that I open up and I start working on, I put them in. I ordered a couple hundred of them, and that's what I get, because when you're out here like, okay, this broke off, now it's inside this plate, it's a real pain to get out. It just is. You can sometimes, I'm gonna have to either look to try to get it to screw out through the top or try to take it through the bottom. But I'm gonna have to loosen this whole thing up, or I'm gonna have to pull it off. It's just, especially if you're out on location or you're doing something like me, it's like, then it's just gonna, you're gonna turn this from being, it's gonna go to about probably an hour, at least an hour job. And you may not get that out of there. You may not get it out unless, without taking that whole plate off, which then you gotta pull you gotta pull your flipper off, pull that, realign everything once you get it off. But I've found that is one of the parts that will fail pretty frequently on the sterns. Just,
Is there a time period when that started getting worse?
I'm going to say, I don't know, not really. I've just noticed it a lot recently. I mean, just like I said, Deadpool was one that I did remember that now all my Deadpools had a problem. I don't know if it was something that just seems like that. That was one that I did have a lot of. They get played a lot though too. I mean, the stern's got great flippers. The flippers are nice and strong. So it's just one of the weak parts in it that happens. And then, so I mean, I've got by with it like this. It'll get by this weekend like that. Then I'm gonna get in here and, because it's gonna take a little time to mess with that to get it back in there and get it right. And I should just take these off and replace them. I mean, and just like I said, just replace them with these Allen heads and a little washer on them. This is another thing, I'll pass it around. This is a common problem with the sterns, and these coil stops that they start getting loose and then they'll end up falling off. This piece will end up coming off, and then it's going to be a problem too. It's going to be a problem, and then you can even see this. I'll break. So this here was this one here was sticking. One of these is worse than the other. This one here is, yeah. You can. I'll just go ahead and spin this stuff around. That's it's like old stuff that came out. Now that shaft though, on that, I'll go in there and I'll take it off. It's not a big deal to do. I can pull one of these off right now, and it's just, you have the one Allen bolt here. You just take that off. This is a brand new one. You throw that in, then you take that one home with you, or wherever you're at, and you can take that on a wheel grinder and grind that end back. Just take something to get that back around. Or I have used a file before on them also, just to Yeah, just the mushrooming, because that's gonna, if you feel that when it goes in there, you can feel that will definitely, your flipper's gonna stay up, it's gonna hang up on you. That's gonna be a problem. Let me get this one thing out. Now, like I said, I've did it in the games even before, just kind of file that down, and if you can get in there good enough. Some of them are tighter than others, different games, you know, where it's located, it's harder to get to. I mean, you can get in there and just file that and get it back to where it was, where, you know, where it'll go through there, working it out really, really good again. I mean, yeah, because it'll, and they will, and then like that coil stop too will get, sometimes, especially with games with a lot of magnets, sometimes it gets magnetized a little bit, it'll kind of hang up.
So is this the game that was on the floor of the left flipper?
Yes.
Drop down?
That's why, that whole coil stop fell off into the playfield. I mean, not in the playfield, it fell off down here in the cabinet. I came here, the coil was back, so this piece got, you know, it got jammed up and it was,
That makes sense why it wasn't in there.
yeah, it was just, like I said, it was, I put one, because it was kind of hard for me to get to, you know, everybody was playing it, so I, like I said, I put just the one bolt in there for now. Yeah, it was, this was, it was just kind of like sitting there like this, and this was laying down in here, and I come up to it, it's off, you know, it's just jammed up, you know, not gonna, you know, so I wouldn't, like I said, I put one bolt in it for now, and then I'll leave this even like this, because we'll be able to look, and you can see how I'm talking about where that bolt just broke off on the other side. There's a couple other different things. This game I was looking, I was cleaning it, it has, it actually, because I had it on location before. It had the super bands on it. I don't know if you're familiar. You know, Marco sells them. You can get them at various places, or the regular. Some of the players don't like the super bands as much. They don't bounce. They're like a black rubber more than like the other stuff. But you can pull on each one of these. I like the other, but I will put super bands on some stuff. That you can definitely see the difference. There's a big difference. That super band will never, you gotta just clean it. It's not gonna wear out. Let's put it that way. It's never gonna wear out. It's really a harder rubber, but you definitely don't get the bounce. If you're trying to bounce it like a player back and forth from each flipper, you're not gonna get near the bounce that you would with other stuff. Oh yeah. And they're really hard to get on. I mean, they're not very easy to get on the game. I mean, that's one of the other things a little bit more difficult. It's hard to get on the game.
But when you do, they last forever.
They do
For a
last
long
forever.
time.
They last forever.
You use them for slings?
For what?
You use them for the slings too? Or just regular?
I've only ever used them just for the flippers. I haven't really used them on the slings that much. I've had games before like that. I mean,
I didn't think they were as responsive.
I mean,
They'll go off it and it doesn't register.
well, I mean, I'll give you this one again, and you can see the difference. That's how that coil stop is compared to this one.
Are new stops and arms readily available?
Yes, you can get all that stuff at Marco's. Some other different places have them. And if you look at this game, you see it has two different colored flipper buttons. It's because it broke. One of them broke. And I have a guy that plays at my one locations in Stonehenge, which is now Station 300. But he is probably the hardest guy I've ever seen on flipper buttons. I mean, I'll go up there, there'll be a Band-Aid on one of them. Always. He puts a Band-Aid across it. So it's but he sets it and he just is like, and eventually it just starts, it knocks this, just knocks the piece out and it just comes out here and then it's no good. It just keeps beating it, and it comes out. But I mean, that's something else that's real easy to change. You have, the one big bolt, you knock it down, take the one screw, knock it down, put it in. It's not that big a deal. They're easy to get. I said this is my one main. I usually take this box with me everywhere I go. It's got your basic rubbers and just flipper buttons and all your just basically flipper parts. Coil sleeve, just some of the main stuff that's gonna, and then you always have a couple good magnetic screwdrivers. That's gonna be something you're always gonna need. It's hard to get to places. Let's see here, what else? These will break sometimes also. This gets a little more in depth because this is your the shaft that goes up through the playfield. You guys have all did that, probably replaced them and realigned them and did all that stuff. No, I never did. Yeah, it goes up. It's under here, right here, goes up through, and then on the top side you're doing this. You're putting this on there. There's 3 little bolts that bolt that on, and then you have, as it comes down through here, then you're going to, that's where then you line it up, and you tighten this bolt here, and that squeezes on this flipper mechanism here. And you always have to, they have to make a little thing too. You always got to have about a 1/16 of play in that, so that because it's gonna as you play it more, it's gonna actually close up a little bit too and get tighter. So you got to have that. You have to definitely have a little bit of play here in there, so when you'll start getting, it'll start dragging, slow down the flippers, the whole thing. Let me see what else we on flipper backs here. I have run in one other part that I have ran into that I've seen in the last month, which I've never seen them break before now, so I had to buy a bunch of them. Is this little washer that also, it looks like I probably maybe used it with, I had one time I did use one of these without it just for a week because I didn't have any. This looks like maybe the one I used because it is really not very good. But see, this little washer you have to put in there so it can move. You can, and I like this one, you'll see it's shut. This one's bad. It goes through there. But that little washer, I've had them crack in half and break recently. So, and but I did get away with for a day or two with it outed. Just because, just put it in there to get by because I've never seen them break until just in the last month, which I was amazed when I seen that they did break.
Does that come in rebuild kits? Is that part of the rebuild kit?
Is it probably? Yeah, I would assume it probably is part of it. You can look at, like I said, you can see where I did open one up. I haven't seen them. Like I said, I didn't even have any with me, so I've never seen them break before. But this is a high traffic area that gets a lot of play, so. And it's just one of them. It's not that big a deal, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. You have to kind of have it. So, and then of course your coils, if you need that. I mean, that's hardly ever. You're going to have maybe a wire fall off. It's not going to be. You're never really going to have. Very seldom you get a crack inside or something where the coil's bad itself. But I mean, it is a good, I always keep one. I always have one, just in case. Because I did run into one time, it was on a dead pool where this back broke off. But I think it was all because the coil stopped and everything, so everything kind of got bound up and it busted, popped the back off. So then it was basically shot. After that, it was bad. It was in bad shape. So, try to think what else here. I mean, any other if you have any questions, I'll answer anything about what I've run into about any different stuff.
Well, how often? What point should you be rebuilding your flippers? Just wait until it breaks, or so many games in?
I mean, you could, let's say, this game here, we can look at the things. The flippers, you can go over and play it when we're done. I think it has 6,000 plays on it, 7,000. The tack from ours that I brought in there has 25,000 plays. So you can look at that and see that. It's 25,000 plays, and I have not rebuilt the flippers on it. You can always put, it needs, you put a new coil sleeve on, it's definitely going to help it. When you do that and get it cleaned up, you can you can put a coil sleeve in it and, wipe, you can just take, something, not even spray anything or nothing, just wipe it off, see you clean it off, you put a new coil sleeve in there, you're good to go. Like, I'm sure this coil sleeve's, I think I had a hard time getting it back in even because it was kind of congested over there. Yeah, it's in there pretty good. So I'd have to, and I have a old metal one that I'll use sometimes to tap them out if they get stuck in there. If they because they will get because they get hot a little bit. Sometimes they'll get kind of sticky in there.
Replace, that's the sleeve there, right?
Yeah, this is just like in this coil. It's just it comes with them when you buy a coil, but you can just buy them sleeves. I think they're 10 cents or something, or 25 cents, 10 cents.
Like what does this do to like help the life? Just like
Because you're gonna, as that dust gets in there, there's everything, all these things when they're fire every time. That's why we're like, that's why it's so dust. That dust gets in there and it's scratching, it's gumming up in there. It's just so you put that on there, it's brand new. You wipe that off, it's definitely gonna make that slide through there easy compared to like, you even seen the one. That was a big example where it was gonna hang up. But if you have, this is a new now. Basically, if you clean it up, it's gonna be, as long as this end's not messed up, this thing's gonna, it's gonna slide through there like smooth as could be. And then you have that other one, it's not gonna do that. That the one that was them bad ones, they're gonna be, there's not gonna be, it's gonna be a lot less. It's gonna be drag, it's gonna be friction, drag, whatever. It's just not gonna be near like a new coil sleeve would do. Yeah. So and like I said, these things will crack over time. Or like I said, when you're putting that, sometimes when you're putting these super bands on there, you do put a lot of stress on some of these little plastic parts. And a few times I've seen these break here. I keep a pair in here, but they've probably been in my box for years. But you never know. This thing strips and it starts to turn, and then you're gonna have if you don't have it, then there's nothing you can do because you're just out of luck until you get another one. And they're all pretty much the same. Even from Williams, Stearns, they're basically the same unless some of the old Williams had the short flippers on them. The lightning bolt ones I think they're about a 1/8 inch or 1/8 inch shorter or a 1/4 inch. They're a little bit shorter. But I would recommend, if you got a thing, to just get you one of each of them. Get a coil stop, have it there. Definitely have a coil stop. I would, depends on what you're playing. Probably in a home, maybe the bolts will probably last pretty good. But they do break. They will break. Especially if it's going to get a lot of play. If it's your only game and you're really playing it a lot, it's going to get a lot of plays. I've seen some people have people in their house to have, 10,000 plays on them. If somebody's, especially if they only have like one game or two, it's gonna have a lot of plays. This thing, like I said, it only has, I'm not sure what the plays are on it right now. But and it's, I know it's broke. It has 6,700 plays on it, so total. So it's about almost 7,000 plays. So, and I know that I've probably replaced them coil stops and stuff at least once before. Over time, because I remember working on this game quite a few times, replacing them. So I would say, if you'll end up needing them parts eventually. If you're going to have some Stern games or any game. I'm not just picking on anything to do. Stern's games are great. They probably have some of the strongest flippers out there for sure.
Do you ever check how many plays do you get at the show?
On
a game like
well,
that?
my Turtles that's out there on the thing had no plays on it when it started. So it's out there in the lineup. It's probably going to get around between probably 600 to 700 for the weekend. Around that. Usually usually, like today's getting a lot of plays out there today. Like the games are going nonstop, and and I think the avatar that I brought, it has only had 250 plays on it when I brought it here. So I had a couple of them like that, that didn't have a whole lot of plays when I brought it. So, but it'll be interesting to see. I'll look at the turtles sometimes tomorrow in the afternoon just to see where we're at, or maybe I'll even look at it later today. But it had no plays on it when I opened it and threw it on the truck and brought it here, so for people to play. So, any other questions?
Back to the beginning with, what do you call the screw?
Yes.
You're saying basically buy those and replace them.
I mean, I would if you have to. It's fairly easy to do, especially if you just take one out at a time.
Right.
You're not gonna take nothing off. I mean, and these things, they thread right in. They're the same thread. You can put this, and I have little washers too that go on. A little washer, and you put them on there. And it's the Allen. It's just, this is kind of like what Williams did before. They always had the Allens in there. And this is just a harder bolt. Yeah, it's just a harder material. It's not. It's just. I'm just saying, it's just kind of a pain. When that thing breaks, there's nothing. I mean, you could get away, like I said, I'm going to have this one's only going to have the one bolt for the weekend. But, that one, well, at least I'll put one of these that's not going to break that. But, it's just, takes a lot, it's time consuming, especially if you've never did it. I mean, I don't like to do it. I did it a bunch, and it's just aggravating to get in there. It's really aggravating when you're out somewhere on location. You're trying, usually there's people playing, somebody's by you, and you're sitting there trying to squeeze in between games and trying to do this. It's just not a fun time sometimes. It just can be. It's not. That's the worst part about it. It's just kind of it depends where it's at. In your home. Okay, you got plenty of time you could actually work on it and do whatever. But if you don't want to do it, that's way them are not gonna break. And they all have them. I'm sure Marco has them on his side. That's probably where I bought these at, because I just bought a couple. And like I said, usually if I pop one of my older games when I didn't do this like this one, when I pop it up and I say, okay, that's a problem, then I'll go over here and I'll just change it. It takes me 3-4 minutes. And I change the bolts, I'm done. Then I know this one's good to go. I'm not going to have that problem. I'm not going to have that problem with that coil stop breaking off the side, breaking off that plate, like this one. Like I said, like this one just did today. I was going to bring it over here like that with it, but I got it back up and going over there. I was going to bring it over here with the ball still stuck and how it was, and the coil laying off to the side, and then when that coil falls off, it could hit something else or short something, possibility. It could. Definitely could. Could not. Luckily I haven't had that problem with any of them when it's happened, because this is like the third, fourth one lately I've had do that.
The coil was just dangling?
Yeah, they could fall all the way off. This one wasn't all the way off. It was kind of bound on there a little bit, but sometimes they just drop. Yeah, they'll just, it just depends how the angle is on that bracket too, because how stern they have them in there different ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're facing upwards, backwards, sideways. They're just in different locations. These are not. They're angled down pretty good on that, and then like that one's where that one would basically go. And your top, same way with the top one. That one's not going to fall because it's going to probably be kind of going down. But it's the same thing on it. I could take these things out and just screw them in there. It's pretty simple stuff. I do them one at a time. And like I said, I wouldn't.
You guys want to get closer too, I'm sure. It's like,
You can use this washer over this too. Big of a deal.
Is there a set size for those?
No, I think these have come up as just basically like the Williams, or they'll say flipper or bolts, I believe. It's pretty, like I said, pretty simple stuff. You know, then that one's done. It's not going nowhere. Take another one off.
Are you doing down here too, or just these?
Just these are what,
on the coil.
because this is what's taking all the force all the time. Bang, bang, bang. You know, from your, it's banging that coil stop, and that's why I said them coil stops will come apart too. That's usually that's another issue that we have, is them things will fall off. And they have, and like I said, with games with a lot of magnets, they get magnetized. And you can put it all back together, it feels like it's working smooth, I mean, not have it dragging, and all of a sudden it's still kind of hanging up, and I've fought it before. And all of a sudden you take the coil stop up and new one, and it's good. Because that coil stop wants to just kind of, a little bit of magnet hold it there, you know. And then if it has any kind of a little burr on it, it really helps it stick. You know, so. And see, that's it's done. That would, that to me is bulletproof on that problem happening on that. It's not going to happen for sure. Hey, I'll do the upper ones. Hope sometimes every once in a while you have to loosen these if you can't get to them, because it's just for the way the rails are on. But I think this one we can get by it. I like to kind of start them finger tight myself a little bit, just because I know I don't like to mess the threads up or try to cross thread something in there. So it's kind of, this one's a little tighter to get to. These might be able, sometimes they do have, I think they put a little bit of, sometimes like a never sees on them or something. It seems like they have a little bit of a, or maybe a Loctite sometimes. Because they don't break, that's about usually where they break off, is like where that, because you can see it's a little discolored.
It's that force continues to
Yeah.
bending in and
Then it just,
not the right material and fracture.
and it just, yep, just snaps right off. And I always worry a little bit. I haven't had one do it yet. Just break one coming out. You know, just thinking the bolt's like ready, and all of a sudden it just snaps. It's like, I haven't, because sometimes they can really. This one here wasn't bad. Sometimes they can be really in there. I mean, this is kind of just tight. But
You said it was just called a Williams bolt?
I don't know what that Marco has them on their site as, but they're just like a, probably you can look on there and for Allen, like an Allen
Yeah.
flipper bolt or something, it'll probably
Yeah.
come up,
Look
Allen,
at all
Allen,
our nuts and fasteners.
yeah, yeah, and then look up like an Allen.
cap screws.
Cat screw?
Cap, like CAP.
CFP got it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
It's called a cap screw.
Yeah, where you can use the Allen key.
Yeah. So that part of it, that's basically, that part's done there, and then like I said, I'll fool with that other one. When I get back home, I'll take that plate loose, and I'll try to just take it loose and work it out, and try to work it out. Sometimes you can feel them, if that bolt, if this thing's gonna turn or not. You can kind of, this one, I'll try to get a pair of needle nose vice grips or sometimes, but if you, on the bottom first, I'll try to work it back and forth. I'll loosen all these and try to get in here and just kind of try to work it and try to move it, get it moving. And then maybe I can screw it back out this way if I can get it moving. Or it's easier, it just depends. Like I said, I've took them out the bottom or the top, just depends. It's probably be better off to take it out this way if it was enough to get on here, because you know your threads are good here. So you'd rather take it out the top way, but sometimes you can't get on these because they break so flush. So it's just going to be, each one of them is a little bit different on that part of it. That's pretty much all I have on that. If somebody wants any other questions about anything else, that's the main problem I've run. I know you said you had to drop targets. I haven't been too much problems with the stern drop targets. I'm trying to think of any other things on these, because I use it as saying stern because that's the majority of what people have anymore. I mean, they're buying the new sterns. Stern's making the most pinball machines all the time too, so most likely somebody's going to own one of these eventually. If you're here at the show, you're going to probably buy a newer stern at one point in time. So knock on wood, I haven't really had any trouble with light boards or any of that stuff. And out on locations, I have, like I said, I have a lot of games. Haven't had any problems with that. These node boards, this is your main things anymore. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing in the back box. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen them. There's nothing not like the old games. I mean, it's hardly anything. It's just one little CPU back there, which is pretty basic, and that communicates to all the other stuff. But it's, a power supply. It's not like the old days when that whole back was filled with boards, and then you have all these lights tell you what's going on too especially if you have a problem with stern, they're going to ask you, what lights are on the back, because I've had one of these CPUs go bad. It's been a long time ago though. I haven't had really any problems for ages. And then your little card here, I have heard people having to reformat them sometimes, especially if you do a download on, if they're doing the old way where you put the USB in. Now a lot of these things do it on their own if you're on the Wi-Fi, but sometimes I've heard people having to maybe even get another card and try it and reformat it. I'm trying to think what else I've
You
run
have
into.
problems where it doesn't tell you it's downloading?
No,
I have. Like, you'll be playing the game and the ball will drop and go off. And that's because the system's downloading, but it doesn't tell
it's
you that.
downloading right at the time
update.
when you're sitting there playing it, because okay.
Yeah. And the only way to know is once it resets, is to go back into the menu and look at the software.
Okay.
And when I do, if it's doing that, just leave it alone for an hour and let it reset and do the download.
I had one other thing on a Ghostbusters, and I think it's pretty close to the same system. One time I went to he was on location, he was just dead, he wouldn't do nothing, and called him. I said, he said, well, when you go back over there, he had me like pull the battery, which was like pull this little, like something, and pull it out, redo it, and it was fine. Reset. He like reset it. It must have got corrupted somehow, and that corruption was in the memory. Do you know, somehow? So once you pulled that out and put it back, then it like reset everything for it. I had that one time, like I said, it's been a while ago. I was like, okay, so you kind of, I mean, you're gonna see some different stuff having these games. Other than that, like I said, I really haven't had problems with, you will have a little bit with the bulbs because I'm sitting in there with the heat on the bottoms. Some of these, with this versions of Stern on the GI, but other than that, they run like tanks pretty good. I mean,
Have you had problems with wear in the shooter lane?
well, you do get that. I mean, you've seen how many plays. You can look at this one, what it's got. I mean, I don't think, let me see. I'm lazy now. I used to put Mylar here. On all my games, I used to take a piece of Mylar there. I still do on the Playfield, especially around the older ones with the little magnets. I would always cut a round piece out, slam that Mylar over, and I wouldn't even cut the Mylar out. I just let the ball wear it out. Let the ball wear it off the top of the magnet. It's going to do that eventually. Over time, it'll just wear it. Then you'll have a perfect circle around that magnet, and it won't wear. Especially the big magnets. I don't think it's a big deal as much because they got the big magnets now. But when you had the little magnets, and I have parts in. I mean, they'd mushroom over and do all that with the smaller magnets, like on Iron Man. And I'm trying to think of some of the other games that had the small magnet. I had Indiana Jones. The new Stern Indiana Jones was really bad for mushrooming because everybody's hitting that arc up there to get 8-ball multi-ball. They just throw the ball around and just keep mushrooming and mushrooming. But with the big magnets now, hasn't really been a problem. Optos, here and there sometimes, not too big a deal. I mean, trying to think what else would. I mean, I haven't really had too many problems. And I think right now, with the new Stern Optos, you don't have a receiver and a transmitter like before. It's all one. They take the same one, so it's the same on both sides. So they're just a little boards. I mean, the thing like on them two, it's usually the wires come off. It's not usually the opto. I hardly ever see the opto itself bad. It's usually a wire pops off of them. I've had a Munsters game that I had some problems like that because they kind of folded up by that spot. They fold the wire up because it's kind of a tight spot. You can't even see the wire. You can't even see the wire when it's popped off. Until you tear into it, then all of a sudden, oh, it's off. Okay, but I can't remember ever really replacing these. The board itself is always just usually a wire. Last time I can remember replacing any opto boards was like on Star Trek, because they had the ones with the long cable wires that come down and plugged into like a board. They're like almost like a see-through. You see the wiring as it goes down. When you buy them, I have some, I think, and them I've had a little bit of issues because I have like 4 or 5 of them in there just because they had problems with them, but they don't use them anymore. They're only on a few games like Pirates of the Caribbean and Star Trek was one of the last ones I think that used that, but it just seemed like there was a little bit of, I used to have a little bit of problems with them. Other than that, like this game's here, these been basically rock solid, Any other questions?
I had optos on Rush in the Scoop and the Buck on
Down in here?
on Elvira.
Okay, well, now that's a whole nother story. I'm not about that. Okay, you're right. Elvira, that house is kind of a nightmare. Let's put it that way, a little bit, especially for locations. If you never, and you better have one of them screwdrivers to take it off, because if you're trying to get that without a magnetic screwdriver is I don't know if any of you guys have taken that apart. Have you taken that house off?
No, still under warranty, so I have to have a certified tech.
Well, I don't know why, this is one thing I don't know why Stern, whoever the engineer was at the time, what happens on them, they have them flat optos, just a little flat board. It's almost like this little board, and it shines down through, and then it does in the flat board. One screw in it. It turns. So if they would have if all they would have had to do is have it pinned on one side or another, or something where that was just set there. When they designed it to machine it or whatever, if it was just something, okay, puts in, it's here, that spot. You know, and it would have been simple to do, but because with all that vibration and throwing back, that thing just starts moving a little bit, then you have that problem with the, I have one out on location, and I love the game, but it's like, well, I gotta go up and adjust the, you know. I mean, I guess I could probably put some hot glue on it. People do that, or Permatex. You put some kind of a silicone to kind of hold it in that spot when you're there, you know, so it doesn't move to work. I mean, like I said, it would have been really nice if it was just a couple rails or a pin somehow in it to where it would have just set down on that pin and it wouldn't move. Because there's a bunch of them. They have the one in the back that can move, which has given problems back here. But usually it's the one that shoots down in that you can see it, but you can't get to it until you take it apart. It shoots down in that trough in the back, and it causes that door to, say malfunction door, and it's that opto. All it is that it's easy fix if you have the right tools to just tighten it again, but that you did bring that has been an opto issue. If you have an Elvira, I'll guarantee you're gonna work on it like that. I mean, that's one thing you're gonna end up doing, because I know some of my friends had just bought some from the last run of Elvira's, and he had some issues almost right out of the gate, from shipping, and it's bouncing around and whatever. And he had issues with the house, the same thing, the one I'm talking about. And I told him, and he's one that doesn't want to take all that apart like that neither. He doesn't want to pull that off, And it's not that difficult, because you just pull that. There's a Phillips screw in the top. It comes off, but that thing has to go back on the right way too, because it goes through an opto, the top of that building that spins. And then you pull that. There's 3 on this side, like 1 on this side. But like I said, you need a long magnetic screwdriver to get them screws out, and also to get them back in. Because when I first took it off, I didn't. I was trying to use like black tape in the end of my tool to try to get it down in there to hold it, to pull it up. And so I went. That was one of the main reasons I went and got these long magnetic screwdriver. The magnetic nut drivers was for that Elvira, to work on that on the House of Horrors. Any other questions? Anything else?
Flipper gap. So I had an ACDC that the underbody were working great. I didn't play it for a number of months, came back and they wouldn't move. I think the wood expanded a little bit.
Oh, you mean underneath there?
So different times a year, if you were to flipper gap it properly, later it could become tighter or looser.
Because maybe the wood's, because of the humidity or something somewhere or something. Yeah, I could see that. I haven't really ever run into that. But that's why I was saying you definitely got to have, you're gonna have that's probably. I know they make them little forks that you can put in there. I usually kind of do it by ear or whatever a little bit. I get it. It's like a 16th probably or something. I don't know what the manufacturer says it should be. What Stern says. I know they used to you'd see them in, especially the old Valley Williams, always had them in their little, it's like a little fork that you're supposed to slide that, you slide that underneath even where it bolts up, and then you push it in there, then tighten it, and you pull it out, and then that was your flipper cam. But
Marco sell them.
they sell them. You guys sell them? Yep. That's the easiest way to do it. It's the best way, because you are getting right to specs then. So,
You're working on the bottom side, you're trying to hold it in the right spot. And underneath
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier.
I used to always, especially not. I haven't had as much trouble with these as the Valley Williams, the old stuff. But I used to dread taking the flippers like this, taking this thing out of there and messing with that linkage and then putting it back, because then you'd play like 10 games and all of a sudden this thing's moving, it's walking.
Really tight.
Yeah, because of the old Williams, it just seemed like them. it just, after they been tightened so many times, it just you couldn't really get that extra, and it just you'll look and you'll be playing, all of a sudden your flipper's moving. It just starts walking. But these I haven't had that as bad on these, but that's just probably because of the old parts, If you try to use an old, that would be like, okay, this breaks and you gotta slide that in there, or you're trying to then you try to get it in there, you go there, play 10 games, and all of a sudden the flipper's all out, ones like that. It's like, you'd be like, That's why I usually dreaded that. That was one of the things I did. Always seemed like it was a little bit of an issue.
So Marvin, we have a question in the chat that maybe you've seen before as a tech working on House of Horrors.
Okay.
So Don has an issue where he's locking, there's a locking pin in the ball exit at the back of the playfield. So after he shoots the house to start a mode, it gets stuck at the exit until a ball search happens. And he's wondering maybe there's a problem with the pin that holds the ball in it releasing all the way. Or if
Could
you've
be.
ever
There's
seen that
an
issue.
opto back there also there too. And that, behind that, it's the same as in the thing. There's two, because I believe it's like a black ramp back there. It's like a
Right.
black tube that runs back in there, and there is an opto that shoots down through there, lets that know that's there. So it could be out of line, not knowing the ball's there for the first thing, and that's why it goes through the ball search. Then it searches the ball. If he's saying it does the ball search, then he gets the ball, because it's probably out of a line showing it. Then it doesn't know that ball's there.
Yeah, so look at
Could
that
be.
opto, Don. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely would look at that, because I've had that issue with. That's why I was saying about the back one, because I've had that too, where that doesn't want to do that on House of Horrors. It's more common in that under the building, but that has been an issue. It's the same. It has the same design. It's a little flat opto, up and down on bottom, and it may be look at the bottom one. I think the bottom one came out of line on mine before. The bottom, because it just go into test and see what you should put your finger up through there enough to activate that opto.
Yeah, do like a switch test.
Yeah, in a switch test, and you can get up in there and and then see if you can get it, or you may go to it. It may already even be on, or off. Either way, but you probably go in there and he can take his finger around there behind there. You can do. I think you can get to that because I did that. But it's like I said, it's the same principle. It's got the flat optos that move around a little bit. They move around. That's the only thing I said. They do move.
Yeah.
And you just try to get them, line it back up, and should be good to go for a while, hopefully. Anything else? No? All right. Well, thanks for. Hopefully, I can help people who are here, and then.
Thanks, Marvin.
Yep.
Yeah,
No
okay.
trouble. See Andy do his clear coating next.
Yeah.
Clear coat. He does a lot of really, if you get that far in, he does a really good job clear coating playfields.
He's the guy with the automotive repair business?
Yeah,
Out in
he has
the
a body.
cornfield?
Out in, where at?
Out in the middle of a cornfield?
It's kind of out there, yeah, out in
Hour and
Canfield.
halfway?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. He's real close to Payson, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy is real close to
I've
that.
always known the Lord.
Yep.
Down to his place.
If you have problems with Playfield alignment here.
Not really. I mean, if you get in certain times, it can get that. In my garage floor has a little bit of a drain, and if you get it a certain way that it wants to twist, I've had issues because you get where the legs are, where the cabinet's kind of trying to.
Yeah.
Because you have it leveled, you get there and it's not leveled, it wants to do that. I have had a little bit of issue like
I
that.
thought last year I had a machine like wasn't launching right.
Well-
And I found all you have to do is move this over a little bit.
Okay.
In here.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, if you ever buy a toy store, you're gonna have a lot of problems with the way this is and the way that. I mean, I had nothing but and the coin and actually the the lockdown bar was sticking up. I mean, about a quarter up that high. Can't really get it down, because once you get it down, then this is too low. It's just the way, it's almost like the cabinet was, this was drilled about 1/8 of an inch off or something, where they had this in the wrong, it needs to go, like, I can't remember, up or down. It just feels funny when you're playing it, because that lockdown bar is up like that high, and you can't get it to be tight. I tried. And then when you got it, I tried one, my head of CE was so bad,